Hello everybody, welcome to Atlas Tabletop Gaming. Today we are bringing to you another one of our competitive podcasts. Tonight we are talking Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard. Grab your drinks, grab your snacks, get your paint pots ready, get your paints out. Always thin your paints as well, boys. And listen along while you're painting and playing games or just chilling out on the sofa. This one's an absolute fantastic one, guys. And thank you for joining us. And enjoy the podcast. Hello everybody, welcome to Atlas Tabletop Gaming, where today we are bringing you another competitive podcast. We have all the usual crowd are here, the armchair generals are here tonight. Say hello, Neil.
Hello, Neil.
Hello, Neil. Say hello, Dale.
Hi.
Hi. People aren't waving.
They are waving.
Are they?
Yeah.
I was going to say, how do you know? Unless you've got a camera set up in my kitchen, you creepy pervert.
Exactly, Neil. That's the whole point.
I really wouldn't put it past him.
He does look a little bit weird with those new glasses. They're pretty much like the bottom of milk bowls.
Yeah, they're really strong. And they are like Harry Potter glasses. They really are.
Oh, wow.
Kelly's already taking the piss out of me. Somebody else said I look like the guy off Sonic, Dr. Robotnik, because I got a little twiddly moustache going on.
And
as
now
well.
I can't not see that. Brilliant. Thank you, ruined Sonic.
Every time you're playing Sonic, it's kill Karl, Robotnik, kill Karl.
So amazing, and we're still recording great. So tonight, guys, what we're going to bring to you is a competitive. Now, this is it, isn't it? Are you an Imperial Guardsman or are you Astra Militarum?
Guard.
Dale.
Oh, I'm gonna have to say Astra Militarum. I'm gonna have to say it.
Down. Seriously, let me down there, mate.
I'm a sucker for the posh words. It makes me feel special.
Posh tart.
So, just like last time, guys, with the Elder, we will run through our lists. We'll go through what type of detachment we're taking, what regiment or doctrines we're taking, and then we'll go through the list like HQ, troops, elites, fast attacks, heavy support, Lord of War if you're taking them. Sound good, guys? Just like last time?
Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So it's 2,000 points of Imperial Guard. I shall go first to Rooney. Where's my list? I'm using Battle Scribe for tonight's proceedings. So I've taken a battalion detachment, and the doctrines I have taken are gunnery experts, which I'll tell you what they are. And like with the Craftwood, I think there's a lot of similarities with me and Neil, not with Dale, and you'll all find out what that is in a second. But with me and Neil, there's a fair amount of similarities, but Dale's gone and been different, aren't you, Dale?
As always, I'm difficult.
So, gunnery experts. So when I roll to determine the type of characteristics of any weapon or vehicle model with this doctrine is equipped with, you can reroll one of the dice. Okay, and then I've gone for jerry-rigged repairs, and you'll all see once my list is explained why I've gone for this as well. At the start of my turn, I rolled a d6 for each vehicle model from my army with this doctrine that has lost any wounds. On a 2 to 4, that model gains 1 wound. On a 5 up, it gains d3 lost wounds. So I think they're really, really strong for the list I've taken. Dale, what you got?
So I've taken a slight left turn. I've decided to play a Tempestus Science detachment, so I'm going for Stormtroopers here. So the regiment I've gone for is Iotan Gorgones. Once again, I'm a sucker for the posh words.
Or the unpronounceable.
Unpronounceable words. So the way this works is when resolving an attack with a ranged weapon by an infantry model with this doctrine against the closest enemy unit, an unmodified hit roll of 6 scores 1 additional hit. So it's similar to the old Stormtroopers rule. However, it plays quite nicely with a couple of stratagems, so we'll come to those in a bit, but it makes it quite tasty as a very aggressive list.
Okay. Neil.
So, unfortunately, I don't really like to admit this. I've got exactly the same as Karl.
Yay!
Boo.
Yeah, I know. I generally, do you know, as I sat there, so just for anyone who doesn't obviously know me, I'm like Dale was last week. I'm totally out of my depth. I've never played with Guard, not Astra Militarum, and yeah, I don't really know much about it. Otherwise, I've played them a few times, and I've generally beat them quite a few times, to be honest with you. But I know what their problematic units were. So when I sat down and started researching loads of this, I generally thought I was quite clever. And then I put my list up on our little chat group before obviously we came online to record this, and then when I saw I had the same as Karl, I sort of had to go and sit in the corner and sulk for a little bit, and then realised I'm thinking the same as Karl very. But yeah, so I've gone for gunnery experts and jury-rigged repairs, mainly because, like Karl said, you'll see later on in my list, especially for the jury-rigged repairs, it's a very, very, very good doctrine to have, I think, if you've got a lot of tanks.
It's
So,
very
yeah,
strong. It's very strong.
to
To be able to repair without having a tech priest next to it.
Yeah, definitely.
It is good. It is good. Okie dokie. So, Dale, Tempestists.
Yeah. So I mean, for those who know me, my actual guard list is a custom regiment. So I do use my standard guard army is disciplined shooters and wilderness. So not wilderness survivors. That was a trial one I was using. Gunnery experts. So very similar actually to kind of the one you've gone for. However, my thinking is this: we all know that with ninth edition controlling objectives. We talked about it in the Craft Wars podcast last couple of weeks ago. Controlling objectives is absolutely key. Okay, and not just taking, but your ability to hold them. Now, you've both taken battalion detachments, so none of your tanks are actually able to hold any of those objectives in any way, meaningful way. And with just the lack of any invuln save of them and everything else, they're really vulnerable. So it's not able to play the missions particularly well. The reason I've gone for Scions is very much I can hold, even if just for a turn or so at a time before they'll kind of move back off again. That's kind of where I started from it. As we go through a couple of the units, hopefully you'll kind of see my logic here that actually I think if you want the best chance of winning with a guard army at the moment, you don't take a guard army, you take stormtroopers.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's why I actually just to explain it a little bit, because I've played guard for a fair long time now, and I've gone for quite a fast mobile guard force, and seeing Tempests, I've seen a couple of guys down our club play with them. Justin, I think, has one as well, and I've never really considered looking at them, to be honest. So I'd be interested to see why you've chosen them and what sort of sneaky tricks you have up your sleeve, Dale. So I'm kind of looking forward to hearing what you've done with that. So shall we now go on to our HQ choices? Do you reckon that's a good idea, guys?
Let's go.
Yeah. Okay.
Do it.
So I've gone for a 2 company commanders. I think standard. I think if you want to have troops in your army, you need company commanders to be able to issue the orders, and there's some really, really cool orders that they get to issue. One of them is my warlord. Oh, my phone's turned itself off, stupid phone. And I've basically given him the warlord trait. Grand Strategist, which, if you know Guard, is the ability to get a command point back, and then the relic is the Kirov's Aquila again, just to try and get command points back, although you're limited these days to how many you can get back a phase, but I think just having that ability to regenerate command points is quite handy as well as in the command phase. He's basically just got a las pistol and a chainsaw, so nothing really special, and then the other one is just got a chainsaw and a las pistol. I have taken a tank commander, because if you're doing guard, you have to have tanks. I think that's an unwritten rule. Would you agree, guys? Or
Yeah, you kind of, it's fundamentally, especially if you're playing towards the fluff, yes, you need to.
Yeah, 100%.
So I don't normally give my Lehman Russ's sponsons, but I had some spare points, so I gave him some sponsons. So he's got a Punisher Gatling cannon, and 3 heavy bolters. I've also given him the tank case weapon expert, so I get that Punisher Gatling cannon to a -1 AP, which, with the amount of shots you can pump out with one of those, if there's a unit of orcs in front of you, it's going to die very, very quickly to one of those. And I gave him a hunter killer missile because I had spare points, and a dozer blade because I had some spare points as well. So that's my HQ. Thoughts?
No, it all makes sense. Tank commanders are they're pricey in terms of points at the moment, I think. I don't think the change to ninth has been very kind to them on that, but they're such a fundamentally, fundamental part of a guard army. You can't really do well with Lehman Russes if you haven't got them. And company commanders, you've got no choice, really, have you? You've just kind of got to take them, otherwise your infantry squads are pretty useless.
Yeah, the orders really sort of give them a bit of beef, don't they? Especially first rank, second rank, or even if you're trying to get on an objective, move is actually incredible. Makes your guard army extremely fast, which people don't expect from a guard army. Okay. Shall we do Dale's HQ?
Yeah, so mine is very straightforward indeed. So I've got 3 Tempestor Primes, which is kind of the equivalent to company commanders. One's my Warlord, and I've gone, once again, very simple with my relics and Warlord traits. So the relic is Laurels of Command, and the trait is Voice of Command. Sorry, Master of Command as well. So I'm just trying to give as many orders as I possibly can. Master of Command, an extra set of orders. Laurels of Command on a 4-up, I can give another order. So they've also all been equipped with the Tempestor's Command Rod. So what that means is they get another order as well. So what I'm trying to do here is, because we're going to be deploying in quite isolated units of Scions supported by a Tempestor Prime, is that those couple of units that are all there in a little blob, they can all be given that, and it really helps to unleash the power of those units.
Sweet. I've never looked at the Tempestors, so I'm sort of learning as I go here. Are their orders the same as normal guard orders, or are they a bit different?
They're mostly the same. However, they have got their own order as well. So elimination protocol sanctioned. To re-roll all failed wound rolls if it's attacking a vehicle or a monster.
Okay.
So that works.
That's strong. That's really strong.
Really strong. So if you then we'll go through infantry and elite choices later, but I don't think it's any secret. I've taken quite a lot of plasma. I always do. That is just that extra bit there. You're hitting on good ones. We could even, decide whether we're going to re-roll our ones to hit, or are we going to go for that? So it just helps to unlock it. Without them, even Scions aren't particularly great infantry. Real low toughness, real lack of wounds, armor save's not amazing. With that, all of a sudden it becomes really quite strong.
Okay. Neil, yours?
I'm gone particularly, to be honest with you. There's a sort of, you'll see it later on in my list, my thought process behind it. So I've got obviously a normal company commander, that's pretty standard again, but I've gone for 2 tank commanders, heavy on the points, but you'll see the armoured theme. And I agree with what Karl said, and I agree with what Dale said to a certain extent. I think in this, again, as we touched in the other video, mobility is massively key. But for me, it was, and I think there's 2 ways in our heads. I think we all know you can either run the guard in a sort of semi-competitive way, to be honest with you. You either go for the heavy armour or you go for a more mobile troop list as such. I think I've tried to just string it along somewhere in the middle, to be honest with you. And I've just pushed it in with 2 the tank commanders, because I just generally think having that decent, slightly better shooting base platform, I think is quite strong. One of the tank commanders obviously is my Warlord. I've given him the same as what Dale had as well. So I've obviously given him Master of Command and the what else did it? In fact, no, I gave him Weapon Expert. Sorry, change, because we spoke about it, didn't we? But I gave it Weapon Expert, which was improve the armor penetration characteristic of turret weapons. This mod equipped me by 1, because my tank commander is equipped with the Punisher Gatling cannon. So now obviously that pumps out that amount of shots, and it obviously then that weapon expert gives it an extra -1 on top of it, which we all know what Punisher Gatling cannon does. Or if you don't and you're sat home giving it, no, Neil, I don't know what Punisher Gatling cannon does. It's a heavy 20, strength 5 with weapon expert. That'll make it -1, strength 1 damage. But we also know what happens if tanks stand still. So you can imagine that's a lot of shots being pumped out of there that are going to be strength 5 -1. So that's potentially, even realistically, that amount of volley of shots. I've come at the bad receiving end of that, even with Primaris Marines, and that hurts. I think, in fact, the last time I took it was my Grey Knights, and basically it wiped out one of my Interceptor squads, just completely wiped it off the board. They're really, really strong. It's a lot of firepower that's coming out of one. So yeah, and that along with the Master of Command, I think, to be honest with you, I'm going to go for the slow tanks, particularly the 2 tank commanders and the company commander being split between either my guard force or in between my tanks as such. So that's generally the sort of route I've gone down with my sort of 3 HQ choices, really.
Sweet, and I think you're right with the Punisher cannon. 40 shots at strength 5, if you move half, you cannot ignore that. That's such a, and that's why it's quite expensive these days, isn't it? Because it never used to be as expensive as 30 points, I think, or something like that now, over a battle cannon, because it's crowd control, isn't it? It literally, nobody wants to go near a Punisher cannon because they know what's going to happen. And I mean, if you really want to, you can give it an extra 6-inch range, can't you, with the new doctrines from Psychic Awakening, which is really, really cool as well. I like it. What I will say, though, maybe because tanks are quite easy to kill, I always make my Warlord a company commander so I can hide him behind 60 guys, just so nobody can get him.
I did do it, but I did think of that, to be honest with you, like you said, and I know that's probably the way most of them would do it. Again, like I said, excuse my naivety with Guard. I'm not going to claim that I'm the best Guard player on the planet. But yeah, potentially it might move him on, but it's just having that better shooting range with the Punisher Gatling cannon. Again, it might, like you said, it'll either come back to haunt you or it'll pay in your benefit that, like I said, normal guards, what they hit on compared to your tank commander. Yes. It just gives you that extra when those 40 shots are getting wrapped out, that you can really, really start hurting people with them, to be honest with you. So that was my train of thought behind it, to be honest with you. So, but yeah, that was what I was thinking.
No, again, similar HQs, apart from Dale. But then Dale was just taking the what they called again, stormtroopers, company commanders. So
same thing. Yeah, same thing. The only thing I've been able to do is really knuckle down on how many orders they can give, because they're useless in every other regard.
Yeah.
So it's all about what orders they can give. I love the Punisher Gatling cannon, by the way, Neil. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant thing. If you do the math on it, like, in terms of return of points, it's great. You should be wiping out a small, 5-man unit of intercessors every single turn. On it, if you're re-rolling ones. If you're facing against a horde army, it's even more devastating. If you face it against other guardsmen, for example, it's 18 dead guardsmen a turn, or any other equivalent. So if we're turning gene stealers or anything else, it's just brutal. It's just a real savage weapon. It does, however, as Karl said, it puts a big old target on top of your tank commander. That's the only downside to it.
Yeah. And like this one, I think, to be honest with you, when I look at it, it'll probably be one of those things where I'm hoping terrain-wise that I'm putting him line of sight blocking and I'm tucking him out the way, potentially a turn, and hoping they haven't got, I don't know, potentially something that can jump around very quickly. You've got, I don't know, Death Company, Sangard, Blood Angel was, or something that has got Harlequins that can jump down the board fast and hit them with haywire, hit them with nasty melee bomb. They can particularly wipe them out or shoot them out. But if you're hiding him, particularly because, again, the range of it is not monstrous, and you've got to hope that board layout and deployment layout is going to favour you a little bit. But if you can tuck it around a nice piece of terrain and keep them out of the way, and then just move it around potentially, and then start letting shots off, then yeah, definitely, I think it's the way forward, to be honest with you. But yeah, I appreciate it. It's got a big bullseye on its back. But hey, then if they're potentially looking at that bullseye, then it does mean that your other tanks and other bits and pieces are being left alone as well, which I have tried to balance later on in my list as well, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can always issue the order striking shroud, which is, you use smoke launchers after you fired your weapon. So smoke launchers -1 to hit you on your opponent's next turn, which is always handy. You can only do it once a game, but -1 is to be hit, is not to be snuffed at, especially if you're playing against people that hit on 4s anyway, like a Tau or another guard army, or even orcs. It's nothing to be snuffed at, that tank order. Okay, so HQs then, all done. Yeah, like them. And now, with troops, shall we do troops, and if we've allocated any transports to them as well, like we did last time?
Yeah, I think so, mate.
Yeah, just to keep it going a little bit fluent. So, I'll go first then. So, troops, I've gone for 6 troop choices. All armed, each unit has got a sergeant and a special weapon in it, and I'm going to get laughed at. I know it, and I'm a glutton for punishment. But I've given I've given them all grenade launchers because I really, really, really like grenade launchers.
Did you just buy a job lot of grenade launchers like back in 3rd edition?
Yes,
and you've been stuck with them ever since.
Dale was blatantly just called you out on that.
Well, every time when you buy a squad of guard, you can have a grenade launcher, a flamer, plasma, melter. I don't take the easy route in my games, boys. I want a challenge. I take grenade launchers.
But they're just rubbish.
No, they're not. No, they're not. They're not rubbish.
We're going back to Vipers, aren't we?
So listen to this, right? So grenade launcher frag is 24 each. Yes. Assault D6. Strength 3, damage 1, blast.
There you go. You've just.
We've been waiting for that, haven't they?
Yeah.
Strength 3.
Yeah. So you're
I
not.
mean, even Space Pixies, you're wounding on a 4, mate. Come on.
Hey, it's fine. No sweat. But then you go crack, and this is why I like them because they are range 24 still. Assault
if you're
1.
Using what? Sorry.
Crack.
That's what you are on, mate.
But it's strength 6, -1 AP, D3 damage. It's 5 fucking points for that. And I like that. I've used them successfully since 7th edition. I love grenade launchers. They always do work for me. That's the thing. You snuffing them, but they're trusty. They're not going to blow up in my face. And you imagine you're a guardsman, you go bop, 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 bop with your grenade launcher. How cool is that? So, yeah, I'm a sucker for the rule of cool. And maybe not the most competitive, although this is a competitive podcast. I like grenade launchers.
I was going to say, this is literally meant to be a competitive podcast.
Well, I wasn't going to fill them all with plasma and blow them up. Jesus, this guard's got to survive.
No, they don't. They're guardsmen. They die. That's what they're there to do.
What I have taken then as dedicated transport, because I actually think in 9th edition you need speed and durability. I've taken 6 Chimeras as dedicated transport for my 6 troop choices. And a Chimera, I really, really like them. They're cheap. They're 75 points. You get a heavy
Get those grenade launchers all the way down the board, eh?
You knows it. Get them out and start bopping.
Just so they can die.
How many wounds do Chimeras have, Carl?
10.
10 wounds. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. How many of them have you got?
6.
Fine. So by my maths, you've just given up. Let me get this right. That's 6 victory points just for them instantly by giving up on using Bring It Down, which everyone's going to bring against a guard army.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine because I got grenade launchers.
Why 6? Oh God! Why 6?
So
why 6?
I can.
It's an interesting one actually because it's one of those things where actually the FAQ has really helped Carl's list here because previously, a couple of weeks ago, that would have been the most stupid things to do ever. Would be doing that many Chimeras just because they're so vulnerable. On top of your tanks as well, you'd be giving up 12 victory points there for them, which is just an absurd number.
But are they vulnerable? They're toughness 7. Yeah, so that's quite a good toughness, You've got a heavy bolter, which is obviously strength 5, 3 shots, -1, 2 damage. Multi-lasers, heavy 3, 6, strength 6, I like that. Las gun array, which I also like. Potatoes a little bit. You've got smoke launchers, they explode. But if you want to put your troops, which are OBSEC, on an objective early on in a game, you can. Yeah, because they've got movement.
Carl, short one. How many objectives are on the board?
On a 2,000 point game, probably 8, is it? 8 or 6?
No, 6. 6 is the max generally that you'll get onto an objective, right? 2 of which will be in your deployment zone, so you don't need to do anything. You'll park your tanks on top of it. So that means that you're not going to go to the back objectives because they'll be doing the same. And I've played quite a few games of 9th edition still, and getting to their rear objective, unless you've got deep striking, hard hitting enemy, you're not generally getting near them. So you're fighting for 2 objectives mid board. You have 6 chimeras and 6 squads of guard that you're going to be piling forward to their death on 2 objectives at the middle. Do you not think it's a little OTT?
No, God fucking no. If I could get more in the list, I would. Because I'm putting 30 guardsmen on one objective, 30 on another, with company commanders in them issuing orders with the stratagem. I've got my other bits and pieces in the army pummeling the enemy to bits. And yeah, I think the mobility part.
I mean, I suppose the counter argument for it is like you said, you could particularly drop. I mean, not the guard squads because we all
grenade
know
launchers, man. Come on,
guard squad. Oh, God's sake, shut up, please. The grenade launchers. But the chimeras, I suppose, if you they won't act as guard squads. I suppose you could shield the guard squads and potentially touch them round from line of sight. Maybe can you?
Yeah,
you can definitely use it as a board control thing. If you're closing down channels there, they're not going to last very long because they're not particularly tough. But strangely, I've got something in my list to do the same thing. Which kind of that sort of thinking that makes more sense than. But 6 is a lot. I mean, that's a huge number of points. What are they 85 points each car?
75. So for 6 chimeras, it's 450 points. That's not a lot of points.
The thing is, like, I mean, my game last night that I played, the actual table, if you'd have played that list actually, because it was very channeled down either flank, so pulling up 3 chimeras down either flank and almost blocking it, so then his Necron warriors wouldn't have been able to get through at all. So if you could have got there before him and potentially part them the other side of it, and completely then block the 2 end, that could work. Like Dal said, for ball control and, like I said, blocking movement. And they can work, but again, they're chimeras. I mean, anything big weapon is going to still delete them, and then when they blow up, you've got a lot of flappy bits of skin Imperial Guardsmen running around like headless chickens. So.
Let them die. They've got a grenade launcher. But if they're shooting my chimeras, as we get further into my list, what aren't they shooting?
No, I do. I think, like I said, I think 6 is probably just shocked me. I mean, not as much as grenade launchers, but it probably just shocked me a little bit.
Hey, don't knock a grenade launcher until you use one. You know, they're really effective.
Used one in real life, mate. That's a different story, but an Imperial Guard one in the 41st millennium is probably a different story. It's probably pretty whiffy, to be honest with you.
I have a lot of faith in my infantry and what they can do, especially when they get first rank, second rank. The amount of shots you can get out of a unit is absolutely disgusting. I've played Dark Elder with this sort of list, and his Venoms and Raiders had a really bad day against mass infantry shot. It's grenade launchers always fun. I always like using them, and I just love tanks. So literally, I've got, as we go through the list, we've got a couple more things to go through on mine. But it's very mechanized, and I like that. I like the feel and the look of that on the board. I do own 12 chimeras, so I could, there's potential I could do 12.
Oh, good God.
Yes, I know.
Why do you own 12? Like, what made you sit there one day? It's just like you're sat with 11, just like, all right then, I'll have another.
Carl sat there with his little nubbin out, getting all excited over 12 chimeras. Jesus Christ.
Why?
Like you said, what possesses you?
Why the fuck not? That's what possesses me. We play a lot of APOC games, as we do. If I want to bring my guard, I'm bringing 12 chimeras to just drive it.
Can't argue. All right, fine. All right, let's go to mine if we can, because I'm sick of hearing the word grenade launcher.
What's wrong with grenade launchers?
They're awful things.
Now
let's show you how the guard do proper infantry. So Tempestuous Science, for those who don't know, the standard unit size is actually 5 rather than 10. So I've gone for 6 units. 3 of them are units of 10. 3 of them are units of 5. Now, the logic here is very much dropping in where we're needed. Now, for every 5, you can take 2 special weapons. So those units of 5 have got 2 plasmas in. Those units of 10 have got 4 plasmas in. Okay?
Nice.
Now, this becomes really quite special purely because of one stratagem, which is kind of why I've picked the units that I have, not the units that I have. Sorry, the regiment that I did. So it's the specialist. What do you call it for stratagem for them? So it's called Daring Descent. So with this one, when you drop in, you can drop in 5 inches away from an enemy model instead of more than 9. You can't charge with the unit, but a guard, so that's not going to be happening anyway. Now the logic here is we're straight into replicate would be at 9. But however, if you remember rightly back to my regimental trait, is if we're shooting at the nearest unit to us, we've got exploding 6s, so we've got doubles. So each of those plasma shots, we're going to be taking 2 shots for the number of them we're doing. So if we've got 4 taking 2 shots each, we should expect at least 1 or 2 6s. So we've got extra shots there as well. Okay, if they've taken the order so that they can re-roll 1s, we're then rolling again, so we're trying not to blow ourselves up and getting more hits and everything there as well. It's a real disgusting way of deleting a unit that's in front of you. 4 plasmas shooting in is absolutely horrible if you're dropping it next to just about anything. If you're dropping in against almost any unit, even if it's not being absolutely deleted in one go, we're going to do some real nasty damage to it. And obviously we can't use the stratagem over and over again, but there's lots of plasma in that one. So what's that? 4, 8, 12, and then another 6. So that's 18 plasma just in my infantry slot.
And that's a lot of plasma.
That is a lot of plasma. They're definitely better than grenade launchers, mate.
But what I was going to say, so could you do that with grenade launchers as well? Have that amount of grenade launchers in the squad?
You could do it with grenade launchers.
Fuck, that's even better. What about melter guns?
Yeah, you do it with melter guns.
Flamers?
Do it with melter guns. Yeah.
Oh, that's quite sneaky, actually.
It's the normal special weapons trick.
Okay.
Stuff. So, I mean, you could do it with
snipers. Like I said, I really rate that, to be honest with you. Yeah. I mean, I was talking to Dal before it, and for any, like I said, the guys that listen, they wouldn't obviously know, but the Scions are probably the only part of a Guard army that interests me. I'm not usually a Horde player, quite an elite army user, but Guard and Scions, I've always loved the principle and the fact that they just drop in like that, and having that level of being able to strike in, but carrying that level of plasma or whatever you want to sit there and bring in, I think is pretty strong, to be honest with you. I don't think there's many things really that can counter that too much as well. Obviously, Marines and bolter fire will give them a bad day, but once they're in and they can pump that much shots out, they're going to give you a real headache and real things to think about, to be honest with you, which is quite, I don't know, different for a Guard or someone playing Guard. That's not what I would usually come to expect of a Guard list, to be honest, as well, which is really cool, to be honest.
Well, I've gone for it. Obviously, it's very different to everything else. So, obviously, if you're playing against a Horde army, you probably want to swap out those plasmas, maybe for flamers.
Yep.
And kind of get that same effect. 4 flamers per squad, dropping in 5 inches away, so we're well within range and just doing what we've got to do. And then you've got the hotshot lasgun. So, for those who don't know, normal lasgun is what, strength 3. No AP, 1 damage. If you're taking it as a hotshot lasgun, it's still strength 3, rapid fire 1, but it's AP -2. So all of a sudden against Marines, even though we're only wounding on 5s, we're hitting on 3s instead of 4s because we're Scions. Okay, still 5s to wound. That's a little bit ropey, but we're then forcing them onto a 5-up save. 1 damage each. So it's not going to wipe out a Marine unit. Of course, it's not, but it's significantly cheaper than a Marine unit. And it's certainly going to cause some wounds. If you're dropping in with that much plasma as well, you're going to wipe out a unit of intercessors for the sake of dropping in some Scions as well. The save on them obviously is not amazing. It's not the same as Marines. So a Scions save is 4-up. It's not horrendous. It's better than 5-up on the rest of Guard. So I love Scions. I've got so much time for them. They've got native deep strike as well. So that we can just use that one. Obviously, we can only use the 5 inches once. In terms of transports for them, we'll come to flyers later. Of course, I've got flyers. There's a reason for that later as well, though. I have taken 3 Taurox Primes. Now, I've taken these as a way of getting some heavy weapons on the board because it's the one thing you really struggle on with a normal Scions list. So I've got 3 of them. I've got 2 with missile launchers and 1 with the Gatling cannon. So the Gatling cannon is kind of a worse version of the Punisher cannon. It's 20 shots, strength 4, no AP. And that's just for trying to clear out some chaff. The missile launchers either got frag, so 2d6 blast, strength 4, no AP, or you've got 2 shots, strength 8, minus 2 d6 damage. That's kind of it. They're only toughness 6. They're only 10 wounds. We've got 3 up save on them, but they've got a 14-inch move. So once again, it gives you another option. We could, instead of deep striking in these signs, we could actually put them into thoraxes, 14 inches, belt it up the board, advance if we want to as well, and then wait for it to be blown up and pop ourselves 3 inches backwards, so that we're then in a strong offensive position. As I said, this is a guard list that is absolutely designed to just go really get on those objectives, and then almost in waves as we go through the turns, we drop in more guys and they kind of taken hold. By the end of it, I mean, I would fully expect to be tabled or very nearly tabled within this list. But I think you would hold and win, I think, and you'd cause a lot of pain to people as well.
And they're ballistic skill 3 as well, aren't they? Which also helps, rather than...
Yeah, ballistic skill 3, which makes a huge difference. Before they're bracketed, obviously they're bracketed, but even when they're bracketed, the lowest they'll go down to is 5+.
Yeah, but even the basic guys are better ballistic skill, aren't they? So they're hitting on 3s rather than 4s.
Yeah, 3+. And then we're using, if you're using those orders, I know we talked about orders earlier, but if you're using either re-rolled wounds, if we're talking about vehicles, that's going to help the plasmas as well, or we're taking re-rolled ones. It really works.
And I suppose you can use...
Sorry, Karl, go on.
I was just going to say, you can use first rank, second rank as well on the hot shots as well. You
can use on the hot shots, yeah. It doesn't help the plasma, unfortunately.
No, of course not. No.
It's a less effective order. The only reason for that, if you're using it on your unit of 10, you've got the sergeant who's not got a rapid fire, and you've got 4 plasmas. You're actually only getting benefit to 5 you guys. So it can work really well depending on what you're shooting. And there is an argument to be made. Do you take a couple of just bare bones units without the special weapons, maybe, as chaff clearers? I'm not a fan because the points differences I don't think are worth it, but you can do it.
Yeah, because the plasma gun's 10 points each or something like that, so it's not expensive.
Yeah, 10 points.
Yeah, not too bad. No, I like that.
I think it's really, really good, to be honest with you. Like I said, it's really interesting in this list because I'm half tempted. I'm looking forward to Dal finishing his army now, to be honest with you. Hopefully, when everything opens back up, I'll come down and play it. But it's just, I'd like to see how it'd work against potentially like Space Marine infiltrators, with them already being on the objectives and then dropping them in next to it on top of it, how those fights and scraps would go for objectives and how that would run out on things. Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting, to be honest with you. I think it just gives that guard army a different dimension that we don't generally see a lot of guard. I think obviously for guard for years everyone just thinks of them as a gun platform that sits at the back and shoots, and now we're starting to see more mobile guard armies. But this then obviously gives you a completely, obviously we know Scions can drop in like that, but I think dropping in and having this ability and the way they're playing in 9th, and we know they're only going to get stronger once the codex drops, I think it could be really, really interesting, to be honest with you. Really interesting.
Yeah, no, I like it. They seem really cool. Okay, so Neil, your turn. Troops.
Mine's relatively boring compared to it. So after Dal's amazing amounts of interesting techers, I've just gone for a standard 4 guard squads. The only thing I've put different with them is that so each of them obviously has Roxcaster, Sergeant, and I've given them a special weapon of a melter gun. It's mainly because, so I was reading through a load of articles online, bits and pieces, and they turned around and said, giving you guards special weapons, this, that, and the other. They said anyone who gives them a grenade launcher is an absolute melt, so don't ever talk to those sort of human beings.
I think it says that on Goonhammer itself, doesn't it? It's literally the front page. It's, get started, guys, and all this sort of thing, but also grenade launchers are for melts.
Hey, I'm thinking...
I think it was backed up in the comments by Tabletop Tactics, Tabletop Titans, Twisted Dark. Pretty much every decent channel out there all ticked and said, tick BG. We totally agree. Anyone who takes grenade launchers is a huge bellend.
Mini wargaming like them though, Karl. So you're
and spiky bits, yay!
You could do us a massive favour then and just emigrate to Canada and be done with it then. So we.
Don't give my ideas. I'll be popping up on there in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, God's sake. Can you imagine it? You take your grenade launchers over to the dusks of Canada. So mine's quite straightforward. It's just 4 guard squads. Like I said, the article I was reading, they said having that melter gun, and it was more math hammer, statistical averages. A, it presents a threat in every single one of them, and B, by the time they have to chew through a guard squad, is actually a relatively sort of durable melter gun within each squad, because you've got to sit there and delete about 9 people as you're going through, or 8 people minimum, before you're then potentially taking out a melter. So yeah, okay, it's easy to wipe a guard squad, but the chance there's going to be another guard squad with them, and it just adds that threat level a little bit to them, because it doesn't matter who you are in the game, no one wants a melter gun in the face, because we all know what damage output they can do. So for me, I have got 2 dedicated transport. I've got 2 chimeras. I didn't go for 6 because I haven't got that much flipping bollocks, and I don't collect 12 of them in my hobby. So I've just gone for the 2 of them. My main thinking behind it is that, like I said, from my experience in 9th edition and the way things play, you'll generally, for me, my 2 backfield objectives I anchor on. There'll always be something. So I'm probably either dropping some long range armor that would sit on that objectives, or guard squads that would sit there and take it to stop anything deep striking coming down on top of me. So those 2 rear field objectives in a 6 objective marker game will be anchored down. I need to take a minimum of 1 objective centre field to be able to compete and stop them getting more than. So for my thing was probably to Chimera rush 2 guide squads onto 1 objective. And that being said, I've got the 2 Chimeras on top of it, and then I've got 2 guard squads and 2 melter guns in there. Melter guns limited range, but at the same time, there's still 2 melter guns in there that if they want to start bringing anything too fruity too close, it's something they've got to think about and worry about inside of them. And again, the guard squads that be staying close to the home, or I might be foot slogging towards it with a little bit of cover from potentially any other armor. Again, it just gives them that little bit of spice, to be honest with you. And for the points that they are, I think, to be honest with you, it's worth having in each guard squad. Yeah, some people might say you might never get a shot off from that melter gun, but it's still a threat. It's still something they've got to think about. It's not just las guns inside your squads. So yeah, so the 4 normal guard squads, melter gun in each. Boxcasters obviously went up, they're going through sergeant, and then the chimeras as well, just to sit there and help shift 2 of those squads centre board and potentially grab an objective or 2, really.
Yeah, no,
I think it's really interesting. I agree with your logic there, by the way. I think it's really interesting that neither of you have put heavy weapons teams into any of your infantry squads.
Nah.
Bearing in mind the power of heavy bolters at the moment, 3 shots, strength 5, -1, 2 damage, you're real marine killers.
Yeah, but what I'll say about that, Dale, is if you
don't say grenade launchers, as I swear I'm leaving this podcast right now.
if you put a heavy weapon squad in your infantry unit, you lose mobility, because as soon as you move with that heavy bolter, it's 5s to hit. Whereas I think dedicated support squads of heavy weapons is the way to go, because there's a neat little stratagem for them, and you can sort of position them on a board. They're relatively cheap anyway, so you don't need them in your infantry. With your infantry, you want to be getting on objectives and trying to score some points, and scaring people away with weapons like melter guns, grenade launchers, and plasma.
Probably not the middle one out of those 3, but
but yeah, if you put heavy weapons in your squads, you're limiting your mobility, and then obviously when you start moving with them, you're becoming very inaccurate with those weapons. So that's why I don't do it. If I was going to do heavy weapons with guardsmen, it would be support squads with probably autocannons, maybe las cannons. Not really a fan. I don't think I've got any heavy bolters, so that's why I didn't do it anyway.
Missile launchers are quite good as well, because obviously you've got the 2 variants of missiles that can sit there and either do a bit of chaff clearing or anti-tank as well, to be honest with you. But I hate to agree with Karl. That was my main thinking behind it as well. If I'm moving my guard squad, if I'm not moving them, it's because they're just being used as a screen. Would that then say a heavy bolt or something in there at the moment? Yeah, it probably would do, to be honest with you. But like I said, I like having the option that if all of a sudden I think actually that flank's getting a bit weak, I need to just rush over, or there's an opportunity to start getting guard forward. I don't want them to be potentially tied down with anything, so they are either chaff screen or one way or another, either onto an objective or to sit at the back and screen things, to be honest with you. If I was going to employ it, I would have probably gone for your heavy weapons teams instead, which I haven't done, but I think they are a decent option, to be honest.
Would you go for them in your troop choices, Dale?
So my thinking, my normal guard list, I'd have probably 3 or 4 guard squads that are moving forward. No, they're not going in there at all. However, any backfield holders I've got, I'd be putting heavy weapons into of some kind. Actually, possibly mortars. Not looking at what they're going to be shooting anywhere near them, but it means that even if the Scar Squad sat at the back, it's actually got a threat across the board for the whole game, and is therefore it's earning some points, even though it's just passively sitting there. I think it's a good way to do it.
Yeah, no.
It's just, I think the thing for me more than anything else is that once you've got those heavy weapons set up within those teams, you're almost set in your mind that they're not going to go anywhere. And I don't like having that almost restriction on the fact that, I mean, I've only got 4 squads, so I haven't got a huge amount anyway. I know a lot of people would potentially field 6 squads, things like that, or more squads. But like I said, I wanted to run a more armor-heavy list and just potentially tank roll up with the odd guardsman hiding behind the tanks and running. In my head, it's almost like a sort of weird World War II story, like get behind the tank and run up behind it, sort of thing. On
nothing
objectives.
Weird about that.
Yeah.
Nothing weird about.
Yeah.
We all remember the old Valhallan art of them all clinging to the side of the tanks. I think it looks amazing. So can I go back to my science for 2 seconds, guys? Because I in my notes, I actually wrote notes about this. I love this list. So I actually had 2 things I wanted to talk about. I completely forgot about. There are actually 2 stratagems. Okay, so the first one's called point blank efficacy. So this is when you're shooting with your hotshot lasgun, hotshot las pistols, and actually this is a shout for taking hotshot volley guns, which are the heavy weapons versions. Spend 1 CP and you up the strength characteristic of all of them. So all of a sudden, those strength 3 -2 1 damage is strength 4 -2 1 damage. We've got real marine killers coming on there. So if we're shooting those, however, the real killer is if you then combine it with killing zone. Okay, so select 1 enemy unit that had any mod. So once you've shot with one of your, it's 1 CP again. A unit of your infantry shoots. If they destroy a model in a unit, spend the CP, and then you can add 1 to the wound roll for everything else, every other infantry model that shoots that unit. So if you're trying to clear off, high profile, really important one, manage to get rid of 1 model from it, spend the CP. You've then also, if you then spend the other CP with strength 4, all of a sudden we're shooting Marines, whereas we would have been needing to roll 5s to wound, we're rolling on 2s. 3. Sorry, I can do maths. Yeah, I can definitely do maths. By the way, we're wounding on 3s. So hitting on 3s, re-rolling, wounding on 3s, and then -2 AP as well. So it can actually be real killers for kind of clearing off high-profile targets.
Okay. Do you want me to edit that bit out for you, Dale, or are you happy for me to just leave that in?
No, it's fine. For someone who's actually maybe quite good at maths, that was embarrassing, but I'll live with it.
Own it, Dale. Own it.
The content is here. We're here for the content. Let's go for that.
I thought we were just here for the slagging Karl off Bants, but hey.
It's right though. So obviously I've given that insight. Let's just hear what he's going to do with his grenade launchers.
I'm gonna fuck shit up. I'm gonna fuck grenade launchers are bunting, boys. I promise you. Anyway, right. So that's troops. I think I really like the sound of Scions at the moment. I'm not allowed to spend any more money on Warhammer this year, or for the rest of my life, I've been told. But
if I was going to say I'm in minuses for years, to be honest with you.
But if I were to start a new army, I think I would look at Scions. I really would, because I like Tauroxes. I think they're a really cool looking model as well. They sound really, really cool. And I hope the people that are listening to this also think that they sound really, really cool. So happy days. So shall we now move on to elite choices? I haven't got any. Dale?
I have.
Hey!
I've got 3 Tempestus command squads. Now, this is actually where you can change the weapons around a little bit. Okay, so I'm open to discussions on this one. I have given all 12 members, funny enough, plasma guns. So I have got, each unit is 80 points. That's 4 command squad members, all with plasmas, so 4 plasmas in there, 20 points each on those ones. Now you could quite happily actually cut 5 points off of each one and give them hotshot volley guns. And then if we go back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of just wiping out Marines, that's real powerful. So I'm open there. You could give them melters, same point, so as the plasma. Any of these work, but they're just absolute monsters at killing things. Now, obviously, they've got native deep strike as well. So you just fight, as your opponent is moving around the board, right, turn 2, we drop in, we delete that unit that they're using. And yeah, they're going to die straight after. There's only 4 of them. They're not particularly strong, but you know what? Whatever, they're going to die. For those who don't know, by the way, the hotshot volley gun is heavy, 4 shots, strength 4, -2, 1 damage. Obviously, if we use that strategy we talked about earlier, that's then strength 5. So we're wounding Marines on 3s here. If we do the other way, we could actually end up wounding them on 2s. So real powerful on those ones. And then forcing them onto a 5-up save. So command squads are kind of a real key part of a Scions list. They are your almost a replacement for heavy weapons. We've got no heavy weapon slot. These are the, an opponent has worked out, maybe they're better off with melter guns, thinking it through, actually. Something pops up, you drop them next to it, you delete that unit, and you move on.
And I think that's what you can put. It sounds daft, but you can put them in one Chimera if you wanted to, because if you get 12 free units of 4, then a Chimera could be a good option to get them at the board where they need to be.
You can't put them in Chimeras, mate.
Can you not?
No, I don't think so. Well, I don't know the Chimera rule, but you can't take Chimeras in a Tempestuous Science detachment, so you need to take a separate one. It's Taurox or nothing.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm just reading the rules now. Okay, but yeah, no.
The Tempest, but you don't need it. You've got Deep Strike.
Yeah, of course. So. Yes, yeah. A hot shot volley gun. It's a heavy weapon, so you're hitting on 4s when you start moving, though.
If you start moving, so when you've Deep Strike as well, so that's probably not the way to go. Personally, I like to think Melt is probably the way to go on these guys.
Yeah, 4 melters.
4 melters drop in, and that strength 8, -4 D6 damage per 1 discarding. It's a nuts amount of damage for a 4-squad unit to do.
They're an alpha strike unit, aren't they? They're the point and shoot sort of. If you're playing Tyranids and there's a monster you want to get off the board very, very quickly, you'll just drop them within 9 inches of it and take it off the board.
Yeah, that's what they're for.
Can you use that 5-inch stratagem as well with the deep strike with them?
Yeah, it's infantry, so you can. Obviously, you can only use it once per phase, so you'd only get to use it once per turn. But yeah, absolutely, can drop it in there. Once again, you've still got exploding 6s as well, so it might be better off with plasma just to give you that benefit in terms of number of shots. But it all depends on how your wound rolls go, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I was just thinking with the way the melter rules are now, rather than D6 at half range or roll 2 dice, you get D6 plus 2, don't you? So if there's a tank that's really causing you issues, or say a Leviathan Dreadnought at the back that's really causing you issues, you can just pop them 5 inches away from it and pretty much take it out first one shot. I like that.
You'd hope so. 4 shots. It's not a huge amount. You're going to hit on 3 of them probably on average, 2 or 3. Strength 8 -4 D6 plus 2. So yeah, you can do a lot of damage there.
Yeah, no, I like them. It's a bit like the normal command squads for Imperial Guard, just a normal basic command squad, isn't it? Very, very cheap. Loads of guns, go up and shoot something.
Yeah, exactly the same. The one thing they've got is that native deep strike. That's what, to me, kind of separates it out a little bit.
Yeah, no, they're very cool. Neil?
No elite slots. So I was waiting for you, Carl, to say I'll put Ratlings in there or something, and then try and justify Ratlings.
Don't knock Ratlings. Don't knock a Ratling. It's a good little unit. They hit on 3s, don't they, Ratlings?
They do indeed, yes, mate. But they also die when you look at them. So there's literally no point to them at all. It's a waste of 50 points. No, I haven't got any elite slots. I did, when I came into a list, I did start pushing around the idea of potentially Bullgrins or something. Ogrins, bodyguard squads, things like that. Because I know they've been used before to quite strong effect. Obviously, it's not the way I wanted my list to go, to be honest with you. So I just left out all elites. It's just interesting listening to, again, what Dale's going through with the science, to be honest with you. They're not structured how I would normally expect a normal guard to be listed, which is really, really interesting. And I don't think, like you said, generally on the elite slot, you don't use too much looking down the list of what inside the elites, to be honest with you. A lot of their elite choices, bar the Bullgrins or Ogrins, don't generally get used. Astropaths, maybe. But yeah, no, nothing for me on that side of them, mate. Nothing at all. Nice and easy.
I mean, there are some special characters, aren't there, for Katachan and Cadia, which are quite good.
Yeah, Harker's in there, isn't he?
Yeah, Harker and Cal, Colour Sergeant Cal. They had some good buffs as well. Like Harker reroll hit with ones and shoot in face for friendly catechins with 6 inch of him, which is quite good because they're relatively cheap as well. And before I've taken Master of Ordnance because he's for 35 points. He's actually quite nice because. Yeah, you can reroll ones if you're a Manticore, Death Strike, Basilisk Wyvern if the enemy is over 36 inches away, which is quite nice. But it's the Artillery Barrage, the range 100.
Yeah, sorry, you've just reminded me actually. So last time I played a guard player, he brought these, and I couldn't believe this guy was 35 points because this artillery barrage is actually quite savage, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, and there's a stratagem called Focus Bombardment. So instead of rolling d6, you just get 6. Strength 8, -2 d3 damage. Don't need line of sight, but if you do have line of sight, you get your normal ballistic skill. But if you don't, it's -1 to hit, so you're hitting on 4s. But yeah, 35 points.
Well, it's blast as well, isn't it? So if it's a squad over 10, it's an auto 6. So you're looking at 6 strength 8 -2 d3 damage. So if anyone's brought a squad of 10 flipping Primaris Marines, they're having a flipping really bad day, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Not to be snuffed at, that one, to be honest. Not to be snuffed at.
No, for 35 points, to be honest with you, I wish I'd have probably sat there and scanned through a list. I think there's probably definitely a site of maybe squeezing a Master of Ordnance in, actually.
Maybe the Vox casters and the troops. If you've only got 4 of them, that's 40 points there, isn't it? Give or take.
I think each of my infantry squads, I had a Vox caster with it in anyway, so that's why I didn't have anything like that. For me, that Master of Ordnance, I'm almost a little bit gutted I've scanned over that, to be honest with you, because I realise how nasty that can be when you drop that in on top of someone, especially if you've got someone on an objective. You just think, do you know what I could do with getting you off? I think that's it's quite a nice one to have. But you live and learn, don't you?
Live and learn. Like you said at the start, you're not a guard player, so it's just one of those things.
Oh no!
Although it sounds like you might be
killing guard.
it does sound like you might be getting a Temp Petrus army soon. So
no,
I think
the wife's only next door.
So let me follow that one up because there is another one. This kind of plays into flyers, which we'll come to later, but it's Officer of the Fleet, very similar. So 2 kind of key abilities here. These used to be amazing. You know, with the specialist detachments from Vigilus, they were monstrous in there. They really helped them. But either way, they're only 25 points. All right, so kind of give that one. They've got 2 abilities. So one is a once per battle air raid requested. So roll a d6. So you pick an enemy unit other than a character which is visible. So almost anything else. Okay, anywhere on the battlefield. Roll a d6, 1, 2, 3, nothing happens. 4 or 5, it's d3 mortal wounds. On a 6, it's 3 mortal wounds. Pretty nothing. If it works, it's great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But whatever. The one we're really after is strafing coordinates. So at the start of the shooting phase, pick an enemy unit. Other than that, which one can fly within 18 inches. Do not need line of sight, okay? You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for any of your Aeronautica Imperialis, which is your flyers, okay? I really wanted to squeeze this guy in. And I kind of wish I'd done it, and I'll explain why properly when we go to the flyers, but it just makes them real nasty, potentially.
Do you know how you could have fitted them in your list, Dale?
Taking less plasma.
1 squad of the command squad, give them grenade launchers rather than plasma. They're only 5 points each.
No,
that's
me. It's been a pleasure, mate. I'll fast.
Oh, I think Neil's cracking up.
Yeah, he is. You've made him so angry.
I triggered him, boys. Is he there?
No, I think we've lost him.
Yeah.
No, he's back. He's back. Okay, so let's go into fast attack. I don't have any. Dale?
No, nothing at all. You can't take any in the science. So.
Oh, dear. Neil, fast attack.
I do. I have 3.
Go on.
Hellhounds.
Woo! I love them.
Ooh, strong. Yes.
Do you know what? I've run into them once, and it was in 7th, and I sort of looked at them and went, "What are they? Are they chimeras, but just a bit guff or something? I don't really understand them." And they bit me in the arse massively. And even in here, for 3 tanks of their level, and it's purely for, so anyone that doesn't really know what hellhounds are, is they're basically, so their profile is, let's bring them up at the moment, so they're movement 12 while they're at the full profile, and their ballistic is 4 normal guard level, but they are toughness 7, wounds 11, with a 3-up save. So generally standard sort of Chimera chassis style tanks, but it's that armament that makes them for me. So they have a heavy bolter, so obviously a heavy 3, strength 5, -1, 2, flat 2 damage now. So those few shots, always handy to pump off and kill a few models. But it's the Inferno cannon, which for me is an absolute beauty. So the Inferno cannon, 16-inch range. However, it's heavy 2d6, strength 6, -1, 1 damage, and obviously being a flame blast weapon, it automatically hits its target.
Ooh,
These
sexy.
things for me, it's rush 3 of these down, potentially 2 of them one objective, 3 of them on one objective, 1 down one side, 1 down the middle one side. Again, on things that are going to be up and holding objectives, to rush these forward and spray that many strength 6 -1 shots off on top of things, you're giving people heavy bolters into them at the same time. For me personally, I would almost use them as a pack and just move them up on top of an objective that I wanted cleared before I then dropped my Chimera and my troop choices on top of them for OPSEC, because then you're looking at potentially 66 worth of strength 6 -1 shots. It's disgusting. I don't know whether there's probably people out there right now that will math hammer it and say that it's a complete waste and you might be able to get this, but I've run into them before, and that Inferno cannon is quite fruity. And to have a tank that has it, and again, is blocking potentially an area of the board off that they've then got to chew through the hellhounds before they can then sit there and start getting through to maneuver elsewhere around the board. And at the same time, that Inferno cannon just blasting off and clearing things that are on objective, the auto hitting, because we know Guard aren't the most reliable shots at the best of times, so that auto hit, and then the strength 6, most things you're going to be wounded on 3s. I generally think that's probably going to probably chuck out quite a lot of wound output, and potentially each one, I reckon, on average, you're looking at potentially 6, 7 wounds on each one of it. You're potentially killing a few Marines on each target, and then you chuck all of them forward and start multiplying that by 2 or 3. You're clearing a squad of Marines well and truly off of it. And you look at points per value, and you look at a squad of how much a squad of 10 Marines is going to sit there and cost on top of it. I generally think they've got value and purpose for the armor that they've got, the blocking of sight they can bring off, blocking of the board they can bring off. Yeah, I like them. Like I said, I think people will probably comment against this and probably say they don't think they're valid, but I think they're strong. I like them, to be honest.
I agree.
I'm going to make them sound even better for you. I'm a huge fan of Hellhounds. So there's a couple of bits here that kind of stick out. I think you took Gunnery Experts as your your trait. So obviously it's heavy 2d6, right? You're re-rolling one of those.
Yes.
So that's actually a big benefit there as well. Okay, there's then the strategy to play out. So splash damage, it's 1 CP. So if you're rolling it, shooting at something that's got cover, you can re-roll the wound roll. So you've got 2d6 re-rolling one of those dice, auto hitting shots, and if you're shooting against in damage, you can re-roll the wound. It's an insanely good way of clearing dug-in infantry, which is a real important thing now. You then also factor in the move, 12-inch move. That's great. It's a really straightforward one. The only thing is, obviously, you've gone for the heavy bolter now. I do wonder whether you just want to put the flamer on it if you're going there anyway.
Yeah. Do you know what? It wasn't until I was looking at it there, to be honest with you. I think you've got a good point. If you're going to sit there and actually dash in there, then potentially, I think heavy bolters for me always ring true. It's that damage 2. If those shots do end up ringing into it, it's, you know what I mean? It's an instant. And we keep going into Marines. Obviously, for me personally, that Inferno cannon, again, going back to my game last night against a squad of 20 warriors. I mean, he had 2 blobs of 20 warriors. That's going to chew through warriors. You stick 2 of them together, 4d6 shots. You know what I mean, auto hitting and wounding on 3s, all of a sudden it's probably going to chew through a vast squad of 20 warriors and leave generally probably next to nothing left, which would have probably come in handy, to be honest with you.
Aren't they blast weapons as well?
No.
Inferno cannon's not blast, no.
Is it not? Okay.
No,
so
it's not.
What you could always do with them as well, because they are really strong. I played with 3 of them not so long ago. I put a heavy flamer in the hull, because that's range 12 now, isn't it? Not 8?
Yeah, 12.
And because you can advance and fire them, you know, your movement is 12 inches, but your effective range at the start of a turn is 24 from that heavy flame, because you move the 12, you add the 12, and then obviously you got the d6 advance as well. So if you really want to get them up really, really quick, you can do. And they are really hard to shift. And if people get too close and it dies, just explode it on a 4-up, innit?
Well, that's the other thing I was going to talk about is the exploding, because it's almost a mortal wound bomb as well that you can just chuck in and amongst a squad of chaff and just turn around and say, even if you do kill me, I don't really care, because it's probably going to take 2 or 3 down with you at the same time.
Exactly. It's a very effective unit, the Hellhounds, and I do like them. I have 3 of them, and I played against Adeptus Mechanicus, 3,000 point game, and I just charged my Hellhound straight into his line, and to deal with them, because I'm going to blow them up, but they're going to kill a lot. And they did. They took out all his light infantry, even the destroyers. They were taking them out. Really effective unit. And I kind of suck that I didn't take any, but good choice.
One other thing, obviously, we talked about Hellhounds. No one's taken them. I am just going to bring up Sentinels quickly, if I may.
Oh, they're good.
They are very strong at the moment. Particularly Armored Sentinels is the one I want to look at. So, for those who don't know, big chicken walkers, haven't been particularly good for quite a long time, but they got a lot of love in Psychic Awakening, which I now can't find their bloody data sheet. So that's really helping me. Anyway, they've got a cool stratagem.
Yes.
Sentinels.
So they're movement 8, weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 5, toughness 6, wound 6, attacks 1, leadership 7, and a 3-up armor save. But you can arm them with loads of weapons, can't you?
You can arm it. And what I was after is strike first, strike hard. So this is their stratagem. In the first battle row, when an armored sentinels or scout sentinels unit from your army is chosen to shoot with, until the end of that phase, when resolving an attack made by a mod of that unit, add 2 to the hit roll, which is insane. So you can take sentinels in groups of up to 3. Now, guards' biggest thing is their terrible ballistic skill. Hitting on 4s the vast majority of the time. Okay, if you start shoving las cannons on there all of a sudden, and they're hitting on 2s, it's 3 las cannon shots between them, hitting on 2s, strength 9, -3, d6, the normal stat line and everything. It's absolutely brutal for killing. Taking out the alpha strike at the beginning of a game and just taking something down that you just don't want to play against. And because they've got 8-inch movement, it's not horrendous, not huge or anything, but that's enough to hide behind something. If they've got first turn, fine. If you've got first turn, step it round, take the shot, done.
Yeah, so I just sat there doing it on Battle Scribe at the moment. Of 57 points, you've got an armored sentinel with a hunter killer missile, a las cannon, and a sentinel chainsaw with that stratagem on them for 57 points. That's not something you generally want to sit there and actually ignore, because that's a lot of very reliable, very, very easy firepower that's going to hit on 2s, wound on 3s, 2s potentially, and start really chewing through stuff, to be honest with you. So I didn't even look. Again, that's probably a learning point for me, but good one, Dale, to be honest with you. That's something that I think's got a real place, to be honest with you. Real place in it.
I tend to I have 6 of these guys, and I tend to arm them with a hunter killer and a missile launcher, so that just to get that stratagem off. So I get 2 missile launcher, so 6 missile launches from that one unit hitting on 2s. I really, really like it, and every game it pays me back the points every game. Even if they die after turn 1, it doesn't matter. You've generally weakened something or killed something.
The hunter killer is actually a great thing to put on there. It's only 5 points.
So cheap.
If you're taking 3 of them, 3 hitting on 2, strength 10, -2, d6 damage, theoretically you could be killing a knight with that sort of damage, and the las cannons or the normal missile launcher as well. That's turn 1 straight up. You can't get much better than that.
No, it is.
I think 3 of those would be near enough an auto include, to be honest with you, if you look at it and revamping that list. To be honest with you, I was looking at mine again. Potentially, that's something I would put in there, because you look at something. I mean, I struggled against the Silent King last night. I needed reliable, heavy shooting power that could hit into him, that would really start taking at least his Meniers away, or start taking a lot of wounds off of him. I didn't have it with the Blood Angels list that I was using, to be honest with you. So having the ability, to be honest with you, to have that lower points, because if they die 170 points, is it going to be? Yeah, don't get me wrong, it's not something you generally want to lose, but if they do die, you're not going to cry yourself to sleep over it. But then, like you said, to have 3 las cannons, 3 hunter killer missiles that are hitting that reliably and then wounding fairly reliably and taking that much damage into him,
they're strong.
Yeah, that's really strong, to be honest with you. Really strong. Yeah.
The models are quite small, so you can hide them behind buildings, no problem at all. It's about how you deploy, isn't it? And a lot of the game is won and lost sometimes in how you deploy your army. Okay, so that's fast attack then. Shall we go into heavy support?
Yes.
Can I go first for heavy support?
Go on then.
Okay, because there's no heavy support option for a science list. I just thought I'd get it over and done with.
You knew it was coming, didn't
Wanker.
Yeah, there's nothing to talk about. We might as well just all move on.
Move on. And I think what we said at the start, that mine and Neil's lists sort of mirror each other in certain parts, and I think they have done in heavy support as well. So we said it in our last podcast that not worrying about line of sight is huge in 9th edition. So my first heavy support slot, I've taken 3 basilisks. just to give fire support with all my army moving forward, just to sit in the backfield, probably doing some 9-inch stopping people from deep striking in and stuff like that, and using a little bubble to stop people from getting close to him as well. And just heavy bolters as well on the whole, nothing special. But literally they're there just to delete units that I don't want to go anywhere near my tank. So if you are playing against like eradicators, a basilisk should easily wipe out a unit of eradicators in 1 round of shooting, right?
We can math hammer that one.
Yeah,
how many shots is it?
It's D6 shots.
Yeah.
So D6 shots. Strength 9.
-3, D3 damage.
-3. Sorry, hang on, I've got that covered. 4 up, strength 9, -3, D3 damage, and we're shooting at their strength 5, sorry, toughness 5.
Yeah.
2 wounds or 3 wounds? Gravis armor.
Is it 3?
3 up save, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to tell you this, Karl, but each one will do, on average, 1.167 damage to Gravis armor, so really not very much at all.
But I got 3 of them.
Alright, let's put 3d6. On average, 1 dead model.
Hey, my plan is working. That's 1 less Malta gun shooting at my tanks. I'll take that.
I mean, I personally think statistics there have probably been quite harsh on it, to be honest with you. I've seen that Earthshaker cannon go into him, and generally, I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying. On average, even if you were to do 1.5 on the damage, and statistically really off on what they can hit and what they can do, then yeah, potentially, I think, to be honest with you, each basilisk potentially will kill an eradicator, whether they've only got 1 squad or whether they have 2 or 3. But I think it's elimination. For me personally, I think it's what you were saying there. It's the non-line of sight which really helps this and makes this a really big model to sit there and take more than anything else, not just because of its gun. It's the simple fact is you want to get rid of something that you can't necessarily see. You've got something on a target or an objective that's scoring them points and stopping you potentially getting them on an objective. I mean, we all know eradicators are filthy, they're nasty. Again, we keep mentioning units. There's a lot of other armies that have things, but all of a sudden, I don't know, you've got Harlequin bikes that are sat on one thing, or they've got something else sat on an objective. The ability to turn around and say, well, I haven't got line of sight from here, there, ever. Oh, I'm going to call upon those 3 basilisks to just level guns and pop all their shots straight onto that one unit. Again, it helps clear an objective off them, but or you limp a guard unit to sit on top of it and get OBSEC. So, yeah, I've seen basilisks firsthand, and I think most guard players would potentially, depending on what style of list they're playing, obviously not a science, but potentially take basilisks. I've think they're quite strong. I quite like them, to be honest with you. They've always been a pain in my dick.
So for me, I've got Basilisk and I got Wyverns, and I love Wyverns. I think they're absolutely fantastic, especially 3 of them. They're really, really good, but they're more expensive than Basilisk. Basilisk are relatively cheap, and you can use a stratagem Aerial Spotter, which will allow you to reroll failed hit rolls for them for that unit in that phase. So that's quite good as well. For 2 command points, you can reroll your hits as well. So the Basilisks are great. Range doesn't matter because they got go fuck yourself range. So you just literally sit them back on your objective, doing a bit of deep strike bubbling, and just pounding the enemy into dust, and they do that really, really well. So yeah, I went for 3 Basilisks. I also then went for a Lehman Russ squadron of 3 Lehman Russes. Nothing special really. Battle cannon, heavy bolter, and a hunter killer missile. No sponsons, and just rinse and repeat of that basically. So just to get that battle cannon fire. Big fan of battle cannons. And that's it. That's my heavy support.
Pretty standard, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty standard. But the thing is, I think it's as standard as it is. I think it's strong. People will have their own twists and variants of what they want things. I mean, mine would probably be a little bit different to yours, a little bit different. But yeah, I think you can't really go wrong with Guard tanks, to be honest with you, can you?
It's tanks, isn't it? And obviously with the doctrine I've taken, so if I do start getting wounds, I can hopefully get some back as well. And I like that. I like to be able to repair them and keep them going. And the ability to roll 2 dice and discard 1 is really good. I like it. So what you got, Neil?
Well, so mine is pretty much similar to yours, to be honest with you, mate. So I've only got 2 Basilisks because obviously I wasted some points earlier on in my Hellhounds, which people are giving it.
They're not a waste. They're not a waste. Not a waste. Not a waste at all, mate.
Yeah, I'll find someone. I'm waiting for the comments. Someone will go in there and trigger me. You should have taken Hellhounds. Could have taken Armored Sentinels.
You should have taken grenade launchers.
Fuck you and die. So yeah, just. And squadron as well. My Lehman Russ squadron is broken down. 2 standard Russes, both because I've got sponsons and heavy bolters, just because I wanted the extra points and had the extra shots. And just to sit there and mix it, I've also got another Punisher that I've put in there. It's just in this edition. I think that I've got enough between the Basilisk and the tank commanders, Lehman Russes, and these 2 Lehman Russes. I have enough anti-tank as such between the las cannons and the battle cannons and everything else like that. Guards, Marine armies have always done well at the moment, and a lot of other armies are doing well. And us, again, going back to game last night, Necrons with their Gauss and things like that, that standard troop weapon firing mechanism, whether it be a bolt gun or whatever it might be, is winning a lot of armies, a lot of respect in different areas. Guard and their las guns, as much as it is death by 1,000 cuts when you do first rank, second rank, is not the most reliable at killing people, to be honest with you, even though we know in the end it will be a las gun that probably brings a knight down. That's just the way it works with Guard armies.
I've seen it.
I think having those, I mean, it happens. We all know it happens. But I think having 2 Punishers out there to be able to wrap down that many shots at that strength, just again, it gives it that mix, that focal point that someone gives it. He's got a Punisher on that side as well. I'm not going to sit there and go skipping my Marines or my 10-man unit down that side straight away, because I'm probably going to get a barrage of shots fly straight down that rank. I just love Punishers. I really do. I think they're such a good weapon. They really are. And for 175 points for that Lehman Russ Punisher, just with the weapon load that it's got, I just generally think it pumps out a lot of shots, and it's quite a big stubborn lump of metal to try and shift if you do want to get rid of it. Don't get me wrong, an Radix Greater Squad will just beam down and wipe it off the face of the board, but that's one of my tanks, and then all of a sudden the other Punisher's going to turn around and start putting rockets into your ass instead. So, yeah, that's my choice on my Lehman Russ squadron, to be honest with you. I just thought, mix it up, some big shots, and mix it up with some volley of large amount of spray fire as well. So that is my heavy supports.
I like it. I think, again, with Guard, when you're playing with a Guard army or you're playing against Guard armies, you want to see loads of fucking tanks. You want to see loads of tanks. You want to see tanks everywhere. What tanks you got? That's what people want to talk about. They don't want to talk about fucking grenade launchers, unless you're Karl.
No one wants to talk about grenade launchers. No one.
They want to talk
Not even
about
the person
tanks.
who invented grenade launchers wants to talk about grenade launchers after he's heard you talk about grenade launchers.
I mean, we're all bored to tears. I'll be honest. No one's listening at this point. You know that, Karl.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, at this point, everyone's turned it off.
They're intrigued to know what makes grenade launchers so great, and I've already gone over that. I don't need to go over it again.
I think being touched to the head's the only thing that's making anyone think they're a good idea. I'm going to disagree with almost all of your ideas, both of you, by the way, on heavy support slots. All right. So first and foremost, not the Lehman Russ tanks. They're solid. Not disputing any of those. Love the Punisher Gatling cannon in particular. All right. However, I would be swapping out the Basilisk at the moment for Manticores. It's an extra 20 points. Okay. Yeah. But it's 2d6 shots instead of 1d6 shots.
Yep.
It's strength 10 rather than strength 9. Not that it makes so much difference. There's not much that's toughness 5. Although actually for killing eradicators, oh my god, it's much better.
Yep.
AP -2, little bit less good. Damage D3. Can only shoot for 4 turns. That's his big weakness. All right, but let's be honest, things don't tend to last that long. However, what I would then pair it with, I'd actually probably make at least one of them a tank case. So if I'm taking a couple of them, I'd make it a tank case and give it full payload. That means that instead of D3 damage, it's just 3 damage per one that hits. You would also then look to spend a CP on direct onslaught. So that's if you can then draw a line of sight. So come out from hiding behind something, you can add 1 to the hit roll. So all of a sudden, you've got 2d6 shots. Because of the objective regiments you've taken, you're re-rolling one of those. You're hitting on 3s instead of 4s. Strength 10, -2, 3 damage. Whatever it is, it's dead.
Yep.
Whatever, nothing survives that. Besides some real, Lords of War. That's it. Everything else is dead, and that's for a 145-point model and 1 CP.
But
so 2 CP.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't worked out right now, Dow is the guard player.
Yeah. I love my guard. So is Karl, though. So is Karl.
Yeah.
The other one I would put on there, 100%, if you could find a space for them, is Heavy Weapons Squad. Probably worth 2 different ways of playing it to me. You either just put las cannons on them, and they become a real great Alpha Strike model. Yet another pumping out, taking out those heavy things. Heavy bolters would work on it for the same thing as well. The other one I think about putting on is mortars. So dirt cheap, absolutely 0 points to put mortars on them. Only strength 4. 0 AP, 1 damage, can shoot out of line of sight, however. But what really does it for me is if you take concentrated fire once again, another command point. However, what that does is if all of the models in that unit of heavy weapons squad shoot at the same target, it's +1 to the hit and +1 to the wound. So all of a sudden we're hitting on 3s and we're wounding on 3s if we're shooting at Marine players. But if you do that on those las cannon ones, that's brutal.
Yep.
That's real brutal. All of a sudden, once again, hitting on 3s, you're wounding just about anything on 2s.
Yep.
You're wounding knights on 2s, and then obviously everything else kicks in. Real powerful unit and dirt cheap. To me, I think Guard. I mean, I know you've both only taken 1 battalion. I think they actually would benefit from taking is it Spearhead when you take their heavy weapons?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I think you're worth taking the CP here. And it's one of the things with Guard, actually, is what's holding them back to me a lot at the moment is they're really vulnerable when they move forward, but they're just so CP, and they've got so many tricks, and they're brilliant, but they're so CP hungry, you only get to use half of them.
Yeah, that's why you load up your relics and warlord traits to try and get some back. Obviously, your command phase, you get 1 back anyway.
But you can only get back 1 a turn now, can't you? So it's not...
I thought it was 1 a phase.
Oh, is it 1 a phase? Sorry,
I think it's 1 a. If we're wrong, tell us in the comments.
Put it in the comments. We're
if you're still listening at this point.
If the grenade launchers haven't put you to sleep, just let us know everything we've done wrong.
But no, heavy weapon squads, I've used the autocannon version to great effect.
Great weapon. Really underappreciated weapon, that one.
It really is, because a unit of 3 of them gets 6 shots, strength 7, AP 1, 2 damage. That ain't bad. You'll probably laugh at me as well. I do like Hydras, because when you come against fly lists, especially if you go to tournaments,
I love Hydras.
Your face Elder, your face Harlequins, and +1 to hit is always quite good. And it's auto cannons. You get heavy 8 shots, which is really nice. So Yeah,
It's difficult in the guard, isn't it? I mean, this is the thing for that heavy choice, which you'd expect out of guard, because obviously they're basically tanks, because humans are flimsy in the 41st millennia.
Yeah.
But there are so many different options and choices that I think that you could go down. I mean, like we had with the Eldar, their HQs, there was like 26 different HQ choices or something you
Unreal.
could pick from.
Yeah.
And we could only narrow it down really to sort of 2, 3, 4
Yeah.
that we'd use for chaff. Whereas if you look at guard and the amount of heavy choices they've got in there, there's tons.
Yeah.
But yet there's a lot of them that have quite a lot of validity and quite a lot of use in the game. I've only ever gone really with what I've known and what has gone against me. But then, obviously, like I said, listening to Down, what he knows from being a guard player, I mean, we'll probably talk about it at the end, what we've maybe changed about our lists now, having talked to each other about things. But yeah, it's obviously brought to light for me how much more there is potentially to, especially guard heavy units anyway.
The one thing to bear in mind as well, and I know we've talked about secondaries, and this is post FAQ, is just how many, anyone who's playing guard, they're going to take Bring It Down as one of their secondary choices. And particularly with the kind of looking with the amount of chimeras in your list, Karl, and then the heavy weapons as well, heavy support options, the hellhounds in yours, Neil, and then it kind of does the same thing. That's a lot of victory points you're putting on the table for people to take. And mine, you'll get to the last bit of mine when we do flyers. It has exactly the same vulnerability, and it really hurts guard that one. Obviously, it's far better now than it was a couple of weeks ago. But we talk about all the validity of those heavy support choices. A reason to take heavy weapons teams over tanks actually is probably to restrict the number of points your opponent can rack up.
Yeah, and they're cheap as well.
Yeah, dirt cheap. You can take more. I did build a list before we came on here, which involved 2 30-man squads of conscripts and then just heavy weapons teams everywhere. I took an Inquisitor so it could give the invuln save to the unit of conscripts and make them fearless. It was a horrendous list. It was nasty. I would never take it to play at friends. But oh my god, it was almost unkillable. That unit, it was horrible, and he just gave up no victory points because there was nothing of value to kill.
So that's probably mine in Neil's list done. What have you got left, Dale?
So the big one left, obviously, talking about science, is flyers, and there's a couple of bits here that kind of make it interesting because flyers, generally speaking, in 9th, I don't think they're in a particularly amazing spot. Bring It Down does hurt them as well. All right, so I've got 4 Valkyries because I'm an absolute sucker for them. But let me run it through for you. So for those who don't know, Valkyrie, it's almost just a flying chimera, to be honest. So I've equipped all of mine with las cannons, multiple rocket pods, and obviously they've got their 2 heavy bolters as well. Now, Valkyries hit on 4+, ballistic skill 4. Okay, nothing particularly amazing, but they have actually got what used to really hurt them in 8th is that obviously they were all heavy weapons, so that was actually 5. So they were given a rule, and this will definitely get taken out when we get the codex, by the way, but it's a little bit a workaround. They were given roving gunship. Okay, roving gunship said if you moved under 20 inches, you lost the hard to hit rule, so you didn't have the -1 to hit them, but you got +1 to your own shooting. So actually, it's the only way, except for a tank commander, to get 3 up shooting on las cannons, heavy bolters, the missile launchers, and everything else. All right, so that's kind of my thinking on it. Is actually it's a really nasty way of deploying a lot of very nasty weapons. 2 multiple rockets, so multiple rocket pods, assault D6, 5 strength 5, -1, 1 damage. Nothing particularly amazing. Great for just clearing out some chaff. Las cannon, we all know, 2 heavy bolters on there, so hitting on 3s for everything as well. Now, if you did compare it with that Master of the Fleet from earlier, so the re-rolling 1s, actually it's horrendous. It's one of the most impactful and damaging units you can take in a guard army, and you've got perfect line of sight. Now, if you choose to then move over 20 inches, you're hitting on 4s again, but you're -1 to hit yourself. So actually you kind of gain that defensiveness back that you haven't got on a Chimera or anything else. Toughness 7, 3 up save, so it kind of is. What you've also got is grab shoot insertion. So this is a great way of kind of dominating that mid-table, mid-board really early. So for those who don't know, it's a transport. If you deploy into the transport, normally you can't do anything until turn 2. You move forward in turn 1, you disembark at the beginning of a turn. what you can do with a Valkyrie is grab shoot insertion. So you can move as long as it's if it moves 20 inches or more, you can disembark, roll a d6. On a 1, a model is killed for each model. However, if it's not a 1, they survive and are deployed. They can also, if you're moving less than 20 inches, can just get out at the end of the move anyway, or any point during the move is the way the rule goes. They would need to move an extra inch or half an inch or whatever from the point you've dropped them in. So think about what that means. If you've got 2 units there, we've talked about those 2 midfield objectives. You've got units of Valkyries loaded up with Scions. They move forward 20 inches. They drop their Scions straight on it. You've got objective turn 1. They're also then going to be shooting las cannons, rocket launchers, heavy bolters in, hitting on 3s, potentially re-rolling 1s if we've got a officer of the fleet in there as well, and just absolutely dominating that centre board. Now, they can't block charges or anything in the same way they used to because they're aircraft, but actually what they can do is if you can't move over the base, you can still block, you can still control the board really well. I think they're actually the most exciting bit of the science list, and I love talking about this list. I think it's really fun, but you end up in a situation where it's so different. Everyone's kind of twisted around on that, but everyone thinks of Guard aircraft as being weak, and historically they have been, but it works really well. The only other options there, you have got 2 other flyers you can take. So you've got the Valkyrie, so the Vendetta and the Vulture. Now, they don't benefit from roving gunships, which is why I've left them out. So even though the Vendetta with the 6 las cannons would be amazing at 210 points plus the las cannons, it's quite pricey, and you're hitting on 4s. The Vulture has got the amazing Punisher cannon on it as well, so 40 shots, which can be great, but you're paying for it in terms of points and everything as well, and you're not able to take that board. So in 8th, it worked brilliant with that static gunline army. In 9th, I don't think it does, because actually the real benefit of them is your ability to seize the board turn 1.
No, they sound really, really cool. Yeah.
I really like it, to be honest with you. I like the idea. I like the principle of it. Whether it will have... I mean, this is obviously talking about competitive nature on this podcast. I haven't seen in 9th yet what the fly spam's been doing, to be honest with you. It's phased out a little bit because obviously now the OBSEC has become a little bit more, and they hit the flies a little bit and nerf them a little bit more. So I haven't seen our flies thing. So I don't know what people's lists are like to deal with flies, whether they've taken that eye off of it, and whether therefore your flies will just be pretty much just drifting around the board almost uninterrupted because people have just forgot about flies a lot more. You don't see them as much.
No, I agree.
But it'll be interesting. Like I said, I'm really interested overall in your list just to see the dynamic of how it'd work. I'd love to play it, really would. Like I said, when the world goes back to normal, of putting maybe my Raptors down on the board and playing something that's semi-competitive and just seeing how it works and the working mechanism of it all, because like I said, I think the theory, the principle of it on a game that's based on maneuverability, objective holding, point scoring, it has potentially the legs and feet. I would question the only thing on there is the durability of certain units and certain staying power, whether it could stay on those objectives or could stay in this. If you feature an army that has almost like Guard would have a lot of heavy firepower, whether they could just blow you off the board for being a little bit flimsy, or if you've got something to get anchored down. But no, all in all, and like I said, 4 flyers is 4 flyers. That's still 4 things flying about that you can't ignore, and it's a great delivery method of troops as well. So you've got to deal with it, really.
But
it actually gets better than that almost. There's a stratagem for them, precision drop, which does basically what I've just said in terms of being able to drop, but it's actually you can drop within 5 inches on that as well. Now that is also being able to use as well as all the other ones. So we're dropping within 5 inches. So actually, that's great. We've also got hammer blow. So if we do any, a model is destroyed. So if if there's a horde, this is great against melee heavy armors. If you destroy one model, they have to half the result of their advance and charge for the next turn. It pins them. 2 CP, it's not cheap, but to hold back a horde, which is one thing this army would really struggle with, to give you another turn of earning points, hopefully, works great. Last one, advanced countermeasures on them as well. It's only 1 CP, and it means you can declare that they can hover, so you get the roving gunship rule, but you don't lose the hard to hit ability, so you still -1 to hit. All nice. Trying to help with that
survivability.
Trying to make them a bit more survivability. I agree with you. I think it's an absolute glass cannon. They're either going to dominate a game and win comfortably, or they're going to be absolutely battered around. Anything that can pump out high volume of shots, anything that can ignore cover, because that's where you're going to be trying to bury your scions in, is behind things. They're going to get really badly mauled. But you know what? It's a fun list. I like it.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Okay, so do you know the grav shoot thing on it?
Yeah.
The Storm Raven used to have that back in 7th, where you could basically deploy the Marines and the Dreadnought from the back of it. And it was a very similar mechanic. And when they got rid of that, I was actually quite disappointed, because that's actually quite fun. Just that ability just to drop out of the back, like parachuting in it, or whatever. And I miss that on the Storm Ravens. But yeah, no, I think all of our lists are quite good. They're quite strong. I think grenade launchers are going to be really, really good moving forward. But what I will say is a couple of things that we didn't really include. So I actually think Imperial Guard have quite a good psychic power, which neither of us have taken psychers. And Guard have cheap psychers, don't they? Was it called Psychic Maelstrom? Which is that one where you just keep rolling a dice. So it starts off on a 2, and as long as you roll a 2, you get a mortal wound. Then it's a 3, mortal wound 4, mortal wound 5, and you can hammer mortal wounds quite successfully with that. But none of us sought psychers or any of the psychic powers.
No, not really interested. For me, Guard aren't known in my eyes. I mean, I know they have done before, where you could literally spam things like that. But obviously, the rule of 3 put end to everything else like that. But in my eyes, no, it just doesn't feature. They might have a good power, but yeah, nice one. You're going to bump into Grey Knights on the board. You're just going to get deleted anyway, pal. For me personally, I just don't really rate them, to be honest with you.
That's a good one, Psychic Barrier.
I was about to say that the defensive ones are the better ones, Carl. I think Psychic Barrier, so warp value 6.
Yes, add 1 to your saving throw, so your scions can get free.
Kind of real useful. You also got Night Shroud, warp value 6 again, -1 to hit. -1 penalty to be shot at. So actually, can be really things. I would take those over the offensive ones, because
it's all just mortal wounds, isn't it? The offensive ones, they just seem to cause a lot of mortal wounds.
If you take those and put it on your tank commanders for you two, that's actually, all of a sudden your tank commander's got a 2-up save, and -1 to hit. Actually, that really makes him quite sticky. People aren't going to be shooting at him if they know that's there. That gives him another turn of shooting with all his abilities.
Yeah, no.
But then, did the Astropaths, do they count as a character?
You can take in the elite slot. Is it Weird Vein Psychers and Astropaths are both in there?
Yeah, they're Astropaths only 35 points.
Yeah, they're elite.
Yeah, they're elite.
I've got 3 of them actually. Here, you can take Primaris Psyker. That's the HQ choice.
Yeah, but you just wash it on an Astropath, didn't you? It's quite good. So yeah, no, Guard. It's a lot of the things. Guard probably aren't doing as well as they could. It's a bit like Tau. People haven't changed their mindset on how to play them. We've discussed most of our lists are moving forward and attacking first, whereas a lot of people probably still thinking, I've got to sit back and shoot. I don't think that's how you play Guard these days, or any other sort of old castle army. What do you reckon?
I think they're points wise. I think the few things for me that I've noticed with Guard players more than anything else, they're still a little bit overpointed. I think they need in certain areas, they need slight point reduction, just to bring in line with certain other areas. And the other thing is, I think that potentially their orders, in line with everything else, to make them that little bit stronger. Some of their orders and their Vox casting, things like that, and it just needs to be streamlined, and maybe potentially an extra few stratagems just to give them that little bit of a leg up, to put them on the same level. Because ultimately, as much as you can put a lot of tanks down, you are still relatively slow. A lot of us slow up the board compared to a lot of, again, using Marines for example, Blood Angels. You look how quickly jetpack units you can spam and move them up the board, and they're hard hitting. Blood Angels, I mean, +1 to the wound roll. You don't even need anti-tank. You can charge a unit in, and they might be wounding on 5s, but then because that's +1 to wound, they're wounding on 4s. So all of a sudden, that huge amount of attacks that Death Company can put in, they can melee a flipping tank off of units. So I think, yeah, you can, and then that's a 200-point model that you've put down there that things can just chew for it quite simply. So points adjustment and a few other little areas, but I think, to be honest with you, I think this edition is the edition, particularly like you said. Once Carl said, once they work out how to play it, could be a good addition for Guard once their codex drops if they get the right adjustments. To be honest,
well, if we look at all the ones that have come out recently, like Dark Angels and stuff like that, and Death Guard just before that, you can see the way the codexes are going this edition. So I'm kind of hoping we get some really cool stuff for Guard. Points drop maybe, because 60 points is my infantry squad. They used to be 45. So
yeah,
it's one of the things that's really hurt them is because Games Workshop's decided, right, there's this 5 point per model, that's the floor. They won't allow a unit to go below that. Right, that really hurts Guard because it makes conscripts pointless. Why would you ever take them? Except for just having a mass. And strangely, they could be quite useful previously. But yeah, you're right. 60 points for a Guard squad is just a tax. You don't want Guard squads. No one particularly wants Guard squads. They're just there to kind of take objectives
it's
and die.
95 points for a squad of 5 assault intercessors.
Yeah, and as 5 assault intercessors would absolutely
murder them.
10 Guard in a single turn. So in what way is that achievable? I agree with Neil. I think probably the way to do it, if they're not willing to drop the points, is to bake in some of those equipment costs. So, Voxcast just become free, as an example. Drop the points for the special weapons that go with them. Maybe bring back the old platoon system to kind of give a bit of a different way of doing it. But the Guard infantry's just there. The other one is just the tanks. We're in such a high AP world currently because of eradicators that they could probably a unit of 3 eradicators should be comfortably blowing up a Lehman Russ at a minimum every single turn. For what are they, 140 points for 3 eradicators?
135 points, I think it is.
There you go, 135. Like, that's just horrendous. In what world is that a doer? The only way I can think to save that for Guard is to give them an invuln save, but that doesn't seem like a right. We shouldn't be giving everything in the game an invuln save just because there's one massively overpowered unit.
Well, they've tried to go away from it. They've started nerfing the invuln. So I mean, even like you said, storm shields and things like that now moved up to a 4-up and then a 2-up normal save because everything seemed to be an 8th running around with a 3-up invuln save, and it was just making games. You weren't killing anything, you know what I mean? Everything had an invuln, and it was a nightmare. Whereas now, like I was saying to Carl in a conversation, I think it might have been yesterday, everything's moved away from that. A 4-up invuln now is your good invuln save, and you're lucky if you can. A few things can obviously strat it and move it down to a 3-up invuln, but the vast majority of things will be a 4-up, if not a 5-up invuln. But I generally think Lehman Russes should have a 5-up invuln. I'm just going to put that out there.
Even just the 6-up invuln, just so they've at least got a save of the chance. Or you go for a more Death Guard one and just -1 damage down to a minimum of 1, and not have an invuln save just to try and
that would help.
it.
Yeah, that would help as well.
That might be a way of going about it. They just need the ability to survive, a little bit more easily.
I mean, if you all remember,
like you said,
go on.
That melter guns, they're just negating any save that you're going to have. So, and then, like you said, by the time they're going to come down, they're going to be at close range. The damage output from an Eradicator squad, I mean, I used them in my Marine squad. I take 2 squads of 3 minimum, to be honest with you, because the damage output for the points cost is just ridiculous. I mean, you think one of my Lehman Russes, tank commanders, was set at 240 points. That's just a little bit shy of 6 Eradicators that would put out 6 melter shots. 12 melter shots, sorry. I mean, I'm comfortably deleting everything. You know what I mean? There's no real, like I said, and I think that's the thing with Guard. When you look at it, it's okay to try and say, okay, we're not going to adjust the points or stat the points they are. Okay, then leaving them at the points they are, but then give them something, that little bit of durability. I'll give them that little bit of extra through strats where they can bump up.
Oh.
It was just getting good as well.
Yes.
You're going to have a fun editing job.
Oh, it's gonna be. I'm writing down timestamps as we speak.
You got me back.
Yes, 45 minutes. So I'll just write down timestamps for when you've blocked out, so I know where to go to on the thing. So what was I going to say? So do you remember at the start of 9th they said tanks are back?
Mhm.
Yeah, they're absolutely not.
Yeah, where is that statement? Come on, GW, back up that statement.
Space Marine tanks.
Yeah, bring our tanks back.
They
Yeah.
meant the gladiators.
Oh, is that what they meant? Yeah, so they can sell more. Bring back tanks in a good way. I mean, being able to shoot in combat's okay, but no, I want my tanks to survive turn 1.
But they can't really fire in combat. So this is one of those things. They kind of did that, but
Yeah.
because it's almost everything's blast,
Yeah.
you can't. You
Nah.
can't shoot your main weapons. What they actually meant is you can shoot your hull weapon, and if you've taken sponsons, you can shoot that.
Yeah.
So it's still an improvement. I still like it, and it's still far more fitting. But the way they were kind of trailing it is, I can use my Lehman Russ battle cannon. Nope.
Nope.
No, you can't.
But I mean,
absolutely can't.
You can use your Punisher Gatling cannon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Works on those, all those sorts of things. I think if I was to try and pin down the things that I think could help Guard, we need to make the tanks more survivable. Grinding advance, I like the rule in terms of shooting twice, but it needs to be more flexible in allowing more movement. And actually, probably the big one rule change I would make. So at the moment, if you take Lehman Russes in a once again the heavy support detachment, whatever it's called, they've got OBSEC. They should just have OBSEC altogether. Give OBSEC to Lehman Russes, and it would totally transform how Guard plays.
Yeah, I agree. I think then when you've got, like I was saying there with my list, potentially moving a lot of your tanks up, either your Hellhounds or your Lehman Russes up, and potentially shielding your troops a little bit more. Like you said, if you could just move them up and drop potentially 3 Hellhounds on an objective, completely surround the objective in a diamond so they can't even get within 3 inches of it. And then your objective secured, so they've got to chew through 3, or at least 1 tank to try and get into between them to try and contest it.
But don't forget,
then all of a sudden it makes people's life a nightmare, to be honest with you.
You're not allowed to go within engagement range outside of combat, are you?
No.
So they always have to be that 1 inch away from you at all times, unless you're in combat. I've thought about this with drop pods as well, the ability to just fan out with a drop pod and stick it on an objective. You can't get to the center of it you have to kill the drop pod. It's the same thing, that ability. Even now, you could do it now, even if they didn't have OBSEC, you could put your 3 tanks, all corners touching, and the objective right in the middle, no problem at all, and they can't get to it.
Yeah. And this is what I'm saying, it's those buffs then, it's things like that if you're a dirty player that you're going to sit there and do, because it's going to then sit there and make life a complete nightmare for you to sit there and shoot into it. I mean, there's just, like I said, I think Guard potentially could be very, very good if they just addressed 2 or 3 issues with them and tinkered with it. Then all of a sudden I think you could see Guard armies then potentially come back and be quite strong, to be honest with you.
Definitely.
It could be quite strong, but we will find out anyway, won't we?
Yes.
When's their Codex due to drop?
This year.
Anytime soon, yeah.
This year.
At best.
What'll happen is it'll drop. We'll still be in lockdown. They'll nerf it because the Americans are playing it and it's too good, and then we'll get a watered down version. So yeah, no.
Or it'll be 10th edition.
We've got a new edition, boys, because you missed 9th. But guys. Brilliant, absolutely fantastic discussion. I really enjoyed that. And we're going to do a 3rd one soon, aren't we? We're going to get another one out. We're going to decide what army we're going to choose. But absolutely fantastic. Thank you for joining me tonight, guys. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. We do bring out content every other day as best as we can. And generally, it's good fun and good banters. So thank you for listening, and we'll speak to you all soon.